I applied for the job because I needed something nobody else wanted. The listing said overnight maintenance at Kiruna International Baggage Tunnel Specialist. €800 per week, cash advance on the first, housing stipend if you lasted 3 months. I'd been sleeping in my car outside Luleå for 2 weeks, so I said yes before they finished the phone screen. They flew me in on a cargo hop. Kiruna sits 200 kilometers inside the Arctic Circle, and in December the sun doesn't come up at all. The airport handles maybe 6 passenger flights a day and twice that in freight, mostly iron ore going south, equipment going to the research stations up at Abisko. The woman at the intake desk gave me a locker key, a parka with a reflective stripe, and a ring of 8 keys on a steel clip. "Strand's waiting in Tunnel C," she said. "He'll walk you through it once." Tunnel C was the westernmost spoke. The baggage system ran like a wheel under the Terminal 4 main tunnels radiating from a central sorting room, each about 200 meters long, ending at the aircraft hardstands. My job was Tunnel C and D, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 6 nights a week. Cleaning mostly, watching the conveyors, making sure nothing jammed or froze. Strand was 60, maybe older, with a face like tanned leather and hands that didn't shake. He showed me the supply closet, the breaker panel, the 2 emergency exits. He walked me down Tunnel C at exactly his normal pace, counting steps out loud. 143 from the sorting room to the outer door. He made me walk it back and count for myself. I got 144. "Count again," he said. I counted again, 143. "Good," he said. "You write that number on your hand every shift until you don't need to." He took me back to the sorting room and sat me down at the metal desk bolted to the wall. There was a thermos of coffee, a radio handset, a clipboard with blank log sheets, and a laminated card covered in dense typing. He tapped the card. "These are the rules," he said. "I wrote them because the rules they gave me weren't good enough. You follow these exactly or you leave tonight and I find someone else." I picked up the card. 10 rules numbered. His handwriting was small and precise. "Read them now," Strand said. "I'll answer 1 clarifying question per rule." "That's it," I read. Rules for Baggage Tunnel Maintenance, C and D, Kiruna International Airport 1. Begin your shift at 11 p.m. in the sorting room. Log your start time and initial both thermoses. Check that the radio is on channel 4. Do not use any other channel. 2. At 11:14 p.m., walk Tunnel C to the outer door and back. Count your steps. If the count is not 143 each way, radio the tower immediately and do not proceed with the rest of your shift. 3. Between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, conveyors may activate on their own. This is normal. Do not touch the emergency. Shut off unless a bag is visibly jammed. 4. At 12:09 a.m., inspect the west emergency exit in Tunnel D. Confirm the lock is engaged. Do not open it. If the lock is disengaged, engage it and log the discrepancy. Do not investigate further. 5. If you hear knocking from inside a luggage cart, move the cart to the sorting room and leave it against the north wall. Do not open it. Log the cart number and continue your duties. 6. Between 2:15 and 2:40 a.m., you may hear a voice calling from Tunnel D's outer door. Do not respond. Do not approach the door. Remain in the sorting room until 2:40 a.m. has passed. 7. At 3:30 a.m., perform a conveyor wipe down in Tunnel C. Use exactly 4 liters of cleaning solution. If you see a bag with a bright yellow tag on the conveyor during this time, do not touch it. Let it pass. 8. If the lights in Tunnel D flicker 3 times in a row, count to 60, then flip breaker 7 twice. If they flicker a 4th time, leave the tunnels immediately via the north stairwell and wait in the terminal break room until your shift ends. 9. Radio the tower at 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. for confirmation checks. The response will be, acknowledge Tunnel C. If you receive any other response, do not reply. Turn the radio off and back on, then try again once. 10. At 6:50 a.m., conduct a final walk of both tunnels. Count your steps in Tunnel C. Lock all carts against the south wall of the sorting room. Log your end time and leave via the north stairwell before 7 a.m. I looked up. Strand was watching me. What happens if the count is wrong? I asked. Then something's changed, Strand said. And you don't work in a space that's changed without telling someone. 1 question per rule, I said. That was rule 2, he said. You have 8 more. I used 3. I asked what counted as a jam for rule 3. He said anything that stopped the belt for more than 15 seconds. I asked if the yellow tagged bag in rule 7 would be there every night. He said no. Some nights yes, some nights no. I asked what changed meant for rule 9. He said any response other than the exact words acknowledged Tunnel C in the tower operator's voice. I didn't ask about the knocking or the voice at the outer door. You start tonight, Strand said. I'll be here for the first 2 hours. After that, you're alone until 7 a.m. He stood and checked his watch. It was 10:53 p.m. Drink your coffee, he said. You'll want to stay sharp. The first night felt like theater. I logged my start time at 11 exactly, initialed both thermoses. One was mine, one was Strand's, though I didn't understand why his needed initialing. I checked the radio. Channel 4, green light. At 11:14, I walked Tunnel C with Strand behind me. I counted 143 steps to the outer door. The door was steel, sealed with a rubber gasket, and had a small wired glass window at eye level. Beyond it, I could see the hard stand, empty under the floodlights, and the dark bulk of the terminal's west wing. I turned and walked back. 143. Good, Strand said. Now Tunnel D. Tunnel D was identical to C but colder. Strand said the heating zone was smaller because D saw less traffic. We walked it together, no count required, and he showed me the west emergency exit at the halfway point. The lock was a heavy sliding bolt, engaged. He made me touch it. Feel the cold, he said. I did. The metal was colder than the air. That door hasn't been opened in 9 years, he said. If you find it unlocked, don't wonder why. Just lock it and write it down. We went back to the sorting room. At 11:37, the Tunnel C conveyor clattered to life. No alarm, no warning lights. It ran for about 90 seconds, carrying nothing, then stopped. Normal, Strand said. At midnight, he poured himself coffee from his thermos and told me he was leaving. You have the card, he said. You have the radio. The tower operator tonight is named Pekka. He's been here longer than me. If you need to leave, you leave. No one will blame you. But if you stay, you follow every rule exactly as written. I'll stay, I said. We'll see, Strand said. He left through the north stairwell, and I was alone. The next few hours were easy. I mopped the sorting room floor. I wiped down the conveyor rails in Tunnel C with a rag and a bottle of cleaning solution I measured carefully, 4 liters. Per Rule 7, though it was early. At 12:09, I walked Tunnel D to the west emergency exit. The lock was engaged. I touched it. Cold. I logged it. 12:09 a.m. West exit secure. At 12:40, the conveyor in Tunnel D started on its own. I watched it run. Empty. It stopped after 2 minutes. At 1:15, I ate a sandwich I'd brought and drank coffee from my thermos. At 2:14 a.m., I turned off the radio. I sat in the sorting room and watched the clock on the wall. It was a plain white industrial clock, the kind with a red second hand that ticked audibly. 2:15 came. I heard nothing. 2:20, 2:25. At 2:31, I heard it. A voice, distant, muffled, calling something I couldn't make out. It came from Tunnel D. I didn't move. I watched the clock. 233, 236. The voice called again, louder. It sounded like a man. It sounded like he was saying a name, maybe my name, maybe not. 239, 240, silence. I turned the radio back on and logged the time. 2:40 a.m. resuming radio. At 3:30 a.m. I did the conveyor wipe down in Tunnel C. I used exactly 4 liters of solution measured into a clean bucket. As I worked my way down the belt, I saw a bag come through. It had a bright yellow tag zip-tied to the handle. I stepped back. I let it pass. It rolled down the belt, through the sorting room and into Tunnel D. I didn't see where it went. At 4 a.m., I radioed the tower. Tower, this is Tunnel C, requesting confirmation check. 3 seconds. Then, acknowledge Tunnel C. Pekka's voice. Flat, bored. I logged it and kept working. The rest of the first night was quiet. I did the final walk at 6:50, counted 143 steps in Tunnel C, locked the carts and left through the north stairwell at 6:57. Strand was waiting in the break room with a cup of tea. Good, he said. You didn't call me. Should I have? Only if something happened that wasn't on the card. He stood and put on his coat. You work alone now, he said. I'll be back in a week to check your logs. If you quit, leave the keys on the desk and lock the stairwell door behind you. I'm not quitting, I said. Then I'll see you in a week, Strand said. The second night I counted 143. The third night, 143. On the fourth night, the conveyor in Tunnel C activated at 11:41 and carried a single black duffel bag through the sorting room into Tunnel D. I didn't touch it. At 12:09, the west exit lock was disengaged. I stared at it for 10 seconds. The bolt was pulled back. The door was still closed, but the lock was open. I engaged it. I logged it. 12:09 a.m. West exit lock disengaged, re-engaged, no sign of entry. I walked back to the sorting room and drank coffee and did not think about it. At 2:27 a.m., the voice called again. This time it was clearer. It said, "Help me." It said it 3 times. I sat in the sorting room and watched the clock until 2:40. On the 5th night, I found a luggage cart with knocking inside. It was sitting in Tunnel D near the outer door at 11:50 p.m. I'd just finished the Tunnel C count 143 and was walking D to check the space before midnight. The cart was standard issue aluminum frame, 4 wheels, empty except for 1 medium-sized hard-shell suitcase. The knocking came from inside the suitcase. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 3 more. I moved the cart to the sorting room and left it against the north wall. I logged the cart number D7 and continued my duties. At midnight, the knocking stopped. At 6:50 a.m., the cart was gone. Strand came back on the 12th night. He reviewed my logs in silence, then made himself coffee. You're doing fine, he said. What's in the carts? I asked. I don't know, Strand said. I've never opened one. What about the voice? I don't know, he said. I've never answered. He finished his coffee and rinsed the cup. There's an amended list, he said. You'll need it soon. I'll leave it tonight. Why not now? Because, Strand said, you haven't seen enough to understand why the amendments matter. He left. At 2 a.m., I found a second card under my thermos. It was the same size as the first, same lamination. 6 new rules. Amendments to baggage tunnel maintenance. Rules 11. If you find a flashlight on the floor of either tunnel, do not pick it up. Note its location in your log and leave it. It will be gone by the next night. 12. At 1:30 a.m., check the thermostat in the sorting room. If it reads below 0 Celsius, reset breaker 3 and wait 5 minutes. If it still reads below 0, evacuate via the north stairwell and do not return until your next scheduled shift. 13. If the Tunnel C outer door's window shows a figure standing on the hard stand, do not look at it for more than 3 seconds. Continue your duties. Do not radio the tower unless the figure moves closer than 10 meters to the door. 14. Between 3 and 4 a.m., the sorting room lights may dim. If they dim twice, this is normal. If they dim a third time, turn off all lights manually and work by flashlight until 4 a.m. 15. If you hear your name spoken clearly in the tunnels, do not respond. If you hear it a second time, leave your current task and return to the sorting room. If you hear it a third time, ignore this instruction and continue your work. 16. On nights when the yellow-tagged bag appears, do not enter Tunnel D after 3:30 a.m. Complete all remaining tasks in Tunnel C and the sorting room only. I read the amendments twice. Rule 15 made my hands cold. At 2:38 that night, I heard my name. It came from Tunnel C. A man's voice, not Pekka's, not Strand's, clear and calm. Matthias. I was in the sorting room. I stopped wiping the desk and listened. Nothing. At 2:51, I heard it again. Matthias. Closer. Maybe halfway down Tunnel C. I stayed in the sorting room. I gripped the edge of the desk and watched the tunnel entrance. The lights were steady, the conveyor was still. At 3:04, I heard it a third time. Matthias. From the sorting room doorway, right behind me, I ignored it. I picked up the cleaning rag and wiped the conveyor rail. My hands shook, but I kept moving. I worked for 20 minutes, slow and mechanical, and heard nothing else. At 3:30, I saw the yellow-tagged bag roll through on the Tunnel C conveyor. I did not enter Tunnel D for the rest of the shift. The pattern held. Some nights were quiet, just the counts, the checks, the logs. Other nights, the amendments triggered. I found 3 flashlights over 2 weeks, all in different spots, all gone by the next shift. Twice the thermostat dropped below 0. Both times Breaker 3 fixed it. Once I saw a figure on the hard stand through the Tunnel C door. It stood near the edge of the floodlight spill, motionless. I looked for 2 seconds, then turned away. When I checked again at the end of my shift, it was gone. The knocking carts appeared every 4 or 5 nights. I stopped wondering what was inside. On the 23rd night, the lights dimmed 3 times. It happened at 3:22 a.m. First dim at 3:22. Second at 3:26. I stood and reached for the light switches. Third dim at 3:28. I killed the switches. The sorting room went black except for the pale glow of the clock and the radio's green indicator light. I clicked on my flashlight standard issue, kept charged per the equipment checklist, and swept the beam across the space. Everything looked normal. Desk, thermos, clipboard, conveyor rails disappearing into the tunnels. I worked by flashlight. I wiped down the remaining section of Tunnel C's conveyor, measured and logged fluid levels, checked the breaker panel. At 4 a.m., I radioed the tower. Tower, this is Tunnel C, requesting confirmation check. Silence. I waited 10 seconds and tried again. Tower, this is Tunnel C, requesting confirmation check. A crackle. Then, acknowledged Tunnel D. Wrong. I turned the radio off, counted to 3, turned it back on. I tried again. Tower, this is Tunnel C, requesting confirmation check. Acknowledged Tunnel C. Pekka's voice. Correct. I logged it and turned the sorting room lights back on at 4:01. Strand came again at the end of the month. He read my logs, nodded, and handed me an envelope. Inside was €800 in cash and a note. Housing stipend approved. Key to apartment 4B at 22 Konduktörsgatan. Move in by next week. You've lasted longer than most, Strand said. How many others? 3 before you. 1 lasted 6 nights. 1 lasted 11. 1 lasted 19 and then opened a knocking cart. What happened? I don't know, Strand said. He didn't come back and I didn't ask. He handed me a third card. Emergency protocols, he said. You'll need them if we get a proper storm. We're due for one. Emergency protocols for severe weather power events. 17. If the main power fails, the backup system will engage within 30 seconds. If it does not engage, proceed immediately to the north stairwell. Do not wait for your shift to end. 18. During a full or partial power outage, do not enter the tunnels. Remain in the sorting room with both doors closed. Monitor the radio. 19. If you hear the fire alarm during an outage, this is a false trigger. Do not evacuate. The suppression system is offline and the alarm will reset automatically. 20. If the backup power fails after engaging, light the 3 emergency flares stored under the desk. Place 1 at each tunnel entrance and 1 at the north stairwell door. Do not leave the sorting room until dawn or until power is restored. 21. If the outer door in tunnel C or D opens during a power outage, radio the tower immediately. If you receive no response, follow Protocol 20 and do not approach either tunnel. The storm came 4 days later. I clocked in at 11 p.m. to wind hammering the terminal and snow piling against the outer doors. The radio was crackling with static, but I confirmed Channel 4. At 11:14, I counted Tunnel C, 143. The outer door's window was covered with snow on the outside, and I could barely see the hard stand. At 11:46, the power went out. The lights died. The conveyor stopped mid-run. I stood in the absolute dark and counted. 1, 2, 3. At 28 seconds, the backup power engaged. The lights came back dimmer but steady. The conveyor restarted. I logged it. 11:46 p.m. Primary power failure. Backup engaged at 28 seconds. At 12:09, I checked the Tunnel D West exit. The lock was engaged. At 1:30, the thermostat read 2 degrees Celsius. At 2:15, I turned off the radio and waited. The voice didn't come. The storm was too loud. At 3:18 a.m., the backup power failed. The lights died again. This time, they didn't come back. I clicked on my flashlight and pulled the 3 flares from under the desk. I struck the first and placed it at the Tunnel C entrance. Red chemical light filled the sorting room. I struck the second and placed it at Tunnel D's entrance. I struck the third and placed it at the north stairwell door. Then I sat down at the desk and waited. At 3:41 a.m., I heard the Tunnel C outer door open. The sound was unmistakable. The clunk of the locking bar, the scrape of metal on metal, the sudden roar of wind. I grabbed the radio. Tower, this is Tunnel C. Outer door has opened during outage, requesting immediate support. Static. Tower, this is Tunnel C. Do you copy? Static. I tried twice more. Nothing. I placed the radio on the desk, checked that all 3 flares were still burning, and sat with my back to the wall. The wind howled down Tunnel C. I could hear it rattling the conveyor frame. I did not look. At 4:07 a.m., I heard footsteps. They came from Tunnel C, slow and even, boots on concrete, 1 step every 2 seconds. I counted. 20 steps, 40, 60. At 143 steps, they stopped. Something was standing in the sorting room entrance to Tunnel C just beyond the flare light. I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the desk, on my hands, on the radio's dead indicator light. The footsteps started again. 40 more steps into the sorting room, stopping near the conveyor junction. I heard breathing. At 4:31 a.m., the backup power came back on. The lights blazed. I looked up. The sorting room was empty. The Tunnel C outer door was closed. I stood, legs shaking, and walked to Tunnel C. I walked the full length, counting 143 steps. The outer door was sealed, the lock engaged, the window still packed with snow. I walked back, 143. I logged it. 4:31 a.m., backup power restored, Tunnel C outer door closed, count normal. At 6 a.m., I radioed the tower. Tower, this is Tunnel C, requesting confirmation check. Acknowledged, Tunnel C. At 6:50, I did my final walk. Tunnel C, 143. I locked the carts, left through the north stairwell, and sat in the break room until my hands stopped shaking. Strand didn't come the next week. Instead, I found a note on the desk. Good work. You've earned a second month. New card under the thermos if you need it. There was no new card. I kept working. The yellow tagged bag appeared 3 more times. Twice I heard my name and followed Rule 15 exactly. Once the sorting room lights dimmed 3 times and I worked by flashlight until 4 a.m. The knocking cards came and went. I logged everything. On the 47th night, something different happened. I was doing the midnight check on Tunnel D's west exit when I noticed moisture on the floor beneath the door. Not much, just a thin line of water, maybe 15 centimeters long, already starting to freeze in the cold. The door was locked. I touched the bolt. It was colder than usual, cold enough that my fingers stuck slightly to the metal. I logged it. 12:09 a.m. West exit secure. Moisture present beneath door. Door extremely cold to touch. The next night there was more water. A puddle now, maybe 30 centimeters across, frozen solid. The door was so cold that frost had formed on the interior side, something I'd never seen before. I logged it and continued my shift. On the 49th night, the puddle had spread to nearly a meter. The frost on the door had thickened. I could see my breath even inside Tunnel D, which was never that cold despite the reduced heating. I radioed the tower at 4 a.m. Tower, this is Tunnel C requesting confirmation check. Acknowledged, Tunnel C. Tower, I need to report a maintenance issue. West exit in Tunnel D showing signs of temperature anomaly and water infiltration. A pause. Then Pekka's voice, more alert than usual. Noted, Tunnel C. Has the lock been compromised? Negative. Lock remains engaged. Then continue normal duties. Issue will be logged for day shift maintenance review. Acknowledged. But day shift never mentioned it. Strand didn't come. The puddle kept growing. By the 53rd night, ice had formed in a rough semicircle around the door nearly 2 meters across. The frost on the door itself was thick enough that I couldn't see the metal underneath. And there was something else. Scratches. 3 parallel lines, each about 30 centimeters long, gouged into the frost on the interior side of the door. They were fresh. I could see where ice crystals had been scraped away, exposing the darker frost beneath. They hadn't been there during my last check. I touched one of the scratches carefully. The edges were sharp and deep, carved with significant force. I logged it. 12:09 a.m. West exit secure. Ice formation approximately 2 meters diameter. Fresh scratches observed on interior frost. 3 parallel marks 30 centimeters each. I took 3 steps back from the door and returned to the sorting room. That night I heard knocking, not from a luggage cart, from the west exit door. It started at 1:47 a.m. 3 slow knocks exactly like the carts, then silence. At 1:52, 3 more knocks. At 1:58, 3 more. The pattern continued every 5 to 6 minutes until 2:40 a.m. and when it stopped. I stayed in the sorting room the entire time. I did not go to Tunnel D. At 3:30, the yellow-tagged bag rolled through on the Tunnel C conveyor, which meant I had an excuse to avoid Tunnel D for the rest of my shift anyway. I logged everything. The next morning I found Strand waiting in the break room. The tower called me, he said, about the west exit. It's getting worse, I said. I know. He poured himself tea from a thermos. I went down and looked at it before you got here. The ice is 4 centimeters thick now. The scratches are deeper. What's on the other side of that door? A maintenance corridor, Strand said. 50 meters long. It connects to the old freight terminal. That building's been closed for 11 years. Has anyone checked it recently? No, he said, and no one will. Why not? Strand drank his tea slowly before answering. Because the last person who opened that door didn't come back to lock it. That was 9 years ago. It took us 3 days to get it sealed again. Who was it? The previous senior maintenance tech, Strand said. His name was Eric. He'd worked here for 7 years. He knew the rules better than anyone, and one night during a storm like the one you had, he opened that door. Why? I don't know, Strand said. His logs from that night just said investigating noise complaint. But there was no noise complaint logged with the tower. Whatever he heard it alone. He finished his tea and stood. The door stays locked, he said. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see. The ice will melt when spring comes. The knocking will stop. It always does. And if it doesn't? Then we close Tunnel D, Strand said, and you work C only until they can seal the west exit permanently. He left. The knocking continued every night for a week, always between 1:47 and 2:40 a.m., always in the same pattern, 3 knocks, 5 to 6 minute intervals. The ice kept growing. By the 60th night it had reached the tunnel walls and started creeping up them in thin crystalline fingers. The scratches multiplied. First 3, then 6, then 9. They formed a pattern now, radiating out from the door handle like something had been trying to find the lock from the inside. I stopped doing the 12:09 check on the west exit. It wasn't in the rules that I had to check it every night, only that I had to confirm it was locked. I could see the bolt was engaged from 10 meters away. That was close enough. On the 64th night, I saw the figure on the hard stand again. This time it was closer, maybe 8 meters from the door. I looked for 2 seconds, then looked away. It was wearing what looked like a maintenance parka, reflective stripe across the chest. It was standing perfectly still in the blowing snow. I did not radio the tower. The rule said not to unless it moved closer than 10 meters. At 2:39 a.m. I heard my name. Matthias. It came from Tunnel D, from the direction of the west exit. Not the outer door this time. The west exit. Matthias. Louder. I stayed in the sorting room. I returned to my tasks, wiping down the desk, checking supply levels, counting spare flares. My hands were steady. I'd learned to keep them steady. Matthias. A third time. But this time the voice was different. It sounded like Strand. I put down the cleaning rag. I stared at the radio. Channel 4, green light, no transmission. Strand was at home. Strand was not in Tunnel D. Strand would never be in Tunnel D at 2:41 a.m. I picked up the radio anyway. Tower, this is Tunnel C, confirming is Strand on premises? A pause. Negative, Tunnel C, no other maintenance personnel on site. Acknowledged. I put the radio down. I did not go to Tunnel D. I worked in the sorting room until 3:30 when the yellow-tagged bag appeared and gave me permission to stay out of D entirely. When I did my final walk at 6:50, I counted Tunnel C carefully. 143. I did not walk Tunnel D. I logged it. Tunnel D final walk skipped due to Rule 16 compliance. Strand didn't comment on it when he reviewed my logs. On the 71st night, I found a flashlight in Tunnel D and logged it. The next night it was gone, and in its place was a luggage cart with knocking inside. I moved it to the north wall. By morning it had vanished. The ice at the west exit had stopped growing. It stayed at roughly 3 meters across, thick and permanent looking. The knocking had stopped too. For 3 nights there was silence. On the 75th night the knocking started again, but this time it wasn't coming from the west exit. It was coming from the Tunnel D outer door. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. The same pattern, the same timing. But now it was at the far end of the tunnel, 143 steps away from the sorting room. I logged it. 1:47 a.m. Knocking pattern observed at Tunnel D outer door. Pattern consistent with previous west exit knocking. Whatever had been at the west exit had moved, or there were 2 of them now. I didn't radio the tower. There was no rule about knocking at the outer doors. I stayed in the sorting room and waited for 2:40 a.m. The knocking stopped at exactly 2:40. At 3:30, the yellow-tagged bag appeared. I stayed out of Tunnel D. At 6:50, I counted Tunnel C one final time. 143. I left. On the 81st night, I heard my name 3 times. I ignored it and kept working. On the 89th night, Strand came back. "You've done 3 months," he said. "The housing stipend is yours. You can leave whenever you want, or you can stay." Why would I leave? "Because it gets harder," he said. "The rules are thin. They keep you safe, but they don't keep the space from changing. Eventually, something will happen that isn't on any card. What do I do then?" "You make a choice," Strand said. "You follow the closest rule you have, or you leave." He handed me a folded piece of paper. "I'm retiring," he said. "After tonight, you're the senior maintenance tech. If someone new comes, you'll train them. You'll write the rules if you need to. You'll decide what they need to know." "What if I write them wrong?" "Then they leave," Strand said, "and you try again." He stood and put on his coat. "One more thing," he said. "The west exit. The ice has stabilized. It won't get worse, but it also won't melt, ever. You'll need to add that to the rules. Future shifts need to know it's permanent." "What do I tell them?" "The truth," Strand said. "That the door stays locked, that the ice stays where it is, that some things that start don't finish." He left through the north stairwell, and I didn't see him again. I worked another month alone. The rules held. The counts stayed correct. The knocking carts came every few nights. The voice called my name, and I ignored it. The yellow-tagged bag appeared, and I stayed out of Tunnel D. The knocking at the Tunnel D outer door continued once a week, always the same night, Thursday, between 1:47 and 2:40 a.m. I learned to expect it. I learned to work through it without checking the log times. My body knew when Thursday came. On the 119th night, they hired someone new. Her name was Sarah. She was 26 from Malmö, and she needed the money for her daughter's school. I met her in the sorting room at 10:30 p.m. and handed her the laminated card. "Read these," I said. "I'll answer one clarifying question per rule." She read them in silence. When she finished, she looked up. "What happens if I don't follow them?" "I don't know," I said. "I've never broken one." She asked 7 questions. I answered them the way Strand had answered mine, short, precise, with no speculation. At 11 p.m., I walked her through Tunnel C. We counted together 143. "Good," I said. "Now we wait." We sat in the sorting room. At 11:37, the conveyor activated on its own. Sarah flinched. I didn't. "Normal," I said. At midnight, I stood. "I'll be here for the first 2 hours," I said. "After that, you're alone until 7 a.m. "Will you come back?" she asked. "Every week," I said, "to check your logs." At 12:09, I walked her to Tunnel D's west exit. She saw the ice immediately. "What is that?" "Permanent ice formation," I said. "It's been here since before I started. It doesn't grow anymore. You just need to confirm the lock is engaged. You don't need to touch it." She stared at the scratches in the frost. "What made those?" "I don't know," I said. "And neither will you. That's the point of the rules. You don't need to know. You just need to follow them." We walked back to the sorting room. At 2 a.m., I left her sitting at the desk with the radio on Channel 4 and the laminated card under her hand. I climbed the north stairwell and walked out into the terminal. Outside the windows, the dark pressed against the glass like something waiting. I went home, made tea, and tried to sleep. At 8 a.m., I got a text from the tower operator. "New hire completed her shift. Logs are clean." I made a note in my own log. Day 1, no incidents. I would train her for a week, then she would work alone, and I would check her logs, and someday, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 3 years, she would sit across from someone new and hand them the card. The rules would hold. Or they wouldn't. And the tunnels would keep growing 143 steps at a time until someone miscounted.